soon, but hello, everybody. Welcome to Togetherness in Isolation. I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that over the course of the next week, we actually have quite a few additional events lined up. And you may have missed some of the communications on this, but Mike is sending out pretty regularly our updates on upcoming Zoom meetings, our online SIGs. And in the coming week, we have several that I'd like to just mention briefly. We have something that is being done on Monday morning, and that is with Mike McElney, who, among other people that he's bringing in, will be talking about outreach, volunteer efforts that they have done. I mean, we talk about volunteerism as being key, and it's happening in a lot of different ways, and Mike has been just a great example of that. So he's going to share with us stories and show us pictures of what he's done at fire stations and at humane societies and police stations, etc. So that's Monday at 10 a.m. At 6:30 p.m., same day on Monday, we have what is the first of what could be a continuing series on Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is a very powerful and free for hobbyist design piece of software. And Tim Peachy, who has been doing CAD for decades and has also taught it, is going to lead a guided learning effort. And the first meeting is really just to figure out what we want to do in that process, what the audience wants, what they want to do with their designs, etc. And so that's at 6:30 on Monday. And then I can see Doug right here in my little window, Doug Glesner, and he's been doing a little miracle program ongoing for new people to woodworking called the Fast Start program. And that Fast Start program is moving online, and on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m., he will hold the first of his Fast Start talks. This time it's going to be on marking tools, rulers, compasses, gauges, and that sort of thing. It's meant for beginners, but boy, I'll tell you, I'm not that far from a beginner, and I'm looking forward to it.
So you'll tell me.
So the holiday gift build is something that's going to be meeting on Friday at 10 a.m. The holiday gift build, as you guys probably know, has been meeting periodically, and as we approach the date of the holiday gift sale. Mike, is that you?
No.
So as we approach the date of the holiday gift sale, people were meeting every Friday. So the idea here is to mimic that gathering, but online, and see if people still can't advance programs and projects in their own shops at home and stay coordinated via this meeting. So that's Friday at 10 a.m. And then we just finished a dress rehearsal for a laser special interest group called next Saturday at 10 a.m., same time and same day as this one with Paul Duffield. And we're going to be taking a tour of 3 people's home lasers. They are various sizes from 12 inches by 20 inches cutting area and 60 watts, all the way up to 3 by 4 feet and 100 watts. We're going to see what they've done, how they like it, what it cost them, what hacks they've done, that sort of thing. And again, that's all next Saturday at 10 o'clock. So you'll see these things in summary form coming from Mike sometime later today. But since we had a bunch of people who are already Zoom ready and who may be itching for more activity in their life that doesn't have to do with their confined space, this is a list of things that you can participate in. And while we have a list, it peters off not too far in the future, like 3 weeks into the future, and we could really use additional people who want to step forward and maybe present something that they're excited about. Give a holler out to Gary, Dallas, or me, and we'll see if we can line something up if you've got something you'd like to share. It doesn't have to be a long presentation. It just has to be something that would be of interest to our community, and we'll work with you to put that on. Anyhow, Mike, I wanted to get that in just before we got started, and so thanks for the time.
Not a problem. So without any further ado, we will unmute our fearless host for today, and you're on, Paul. Hopefully.
Am I on?
You're on. You are the star.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to our first, actually our first Hand Tool SIG, but I think one of our early digital ones as well. So I'm extremely nervous, so please excuse me if I stumble occasionally. But what I'd like to do this morning is talk about how I got into hand tools a little bit, a couple of minutes. And as you can see, we've got a few hand tools laid out. I'm not going to go into much detail about how you use them unless you guys want me to. I have no idea what you guys' level of skill is. So once I've spoken for a minute or two, I'd like to hear from you guys about what you're interested in, what you'd like from the SIG, and maybe at the end we'll talk about yeah, excuse me. We'll talk about what we want to do in the future and how we'd like to format this. I do think, though, it's kind of neat that we're doing this online, because one of the features that many of us hand tool users have is that we have our shop set up at home. So, and coming to this shop is kind of noisy, and you don't have your own tools. So, you know, an SIG in the shop is sort of not entirely, you know, hand tool oriented. But anyway, I thought, you know, let's see how it goes. The reason I got into hand tools, I'm not that experienced a woodworker. I've only been doing it for a few years, when I was a kid, what I saw of woodworking was mostly people working with hand tools. And I got into woodworking partly because I like the interaction with the wood and I like the peace and quiet, and I like the way I can become completely absorbed in it for hours at a time. I really enjoy that, and it's great to be able to do it at home. But also, when I started woodworking, I started with a router and a skill saw and a jigsaw. And my neighbors got to not like me very well. So you're working with hand tools was something that I kind of went to partly because, again, it keeps the peace and quiet, it keeps the neighbors happy. And then what I did was I started going to Palomar College, and I took the 100 class, and then hand tool joinery and the art and craft of plane making, and took a little ukulele class. And by that time I was thoroughly hooked on hand tools, and I really enjoy working with them. They're also something that works very well for machine tool workers, because I don't know about you, but I was using my router the other day. I was routing a little groove, and it took out a little piece of tear out, but I was able to make a little sliver to go in there and then use a chisel to get that groove back in there. So hand tools really come in for repairs to ongoing work, and there's just something about, for me, something about the feel of them, the interaction with the wood. I especially like using wooden hand tools. This was my dad's. This is a German one that I like using. But my favorite of all is the Lee Nielsen. If I had no other plane in the world, it would be this one. It'll shave you a shaving so thin that you barely know it's there, and it's great for cross-grain work and stuff like that. It's just all kinds of good work. But anyway, enough of me spouting off. Now what I want to do is quickly show you something. As you know, the shop is closed. So Dallas and I, we've built a couple of garden sheds and a 4-poster bed so far. While you guys, we're doing it all on your money. So no, seriously, what we have got going is I saw something the other day on TV about people who had 3D printers producing face masks for health workers, for frontline workers. And I gave shot Dallas a little email, and the upshot is that we are now producing on our 3D printer, we're producing face masks for health workers. It's kind of a slow process, so if any of you are out there with 3D printers, I've got a job for you. We can send you the files. This is the latest version, which Travis sent me the file on the internet last night, and this is the latest version. What it does is you put a visor through it, and you can take the visor and fold it back over your head as well. So This is a brand new design by the guy who, excuse me, long hair has its disadvantages, by the guy who actually made the printer it's printing on, who designed the printer it's printing on. So we're working on new prototypes. Meanwhile, this one is a really substantial and strong one. And I'd like to put out an appeal, please, again, if you can ask your friends, these acetate sheets, one thing that you can use is what we used to use for transparencies with overhead projectors. If any of you have those lying around, please feel free to contact us and we'll find a way to get them from you. And the other thing is, if anyone has elastic that would go around the back, the new one will even work with elastic bands. We just put an elastic band from here to here. So it's a work in motion, but I think it'll be good. Anyway, enough of going from one end to the other, from hand tools to the very latest technology. Let's have you guys go around and let's hear from you, hear what you want out of the SIG, and you know, we'll work out a format that will work for all of us. I'm sorry, I keep looking at the monitor instead of the camera. So let's go ahead and do a round table and hear what you guys are interested in.
You guys, this is Mike. As you go to speak, you're going to have to unmute your mic, if you would. You can just do that either at the bottom of your screen or on the participants page, whichever one you want to use.
Paul, did you have a preferred order for us to speak in, or just kind of first come, first serve?
Say again?
Did you have a preferred order for us to speak in, or does it matter?
I can't hear what he's
It
saying.
doesn't matter. You can say.
Of people? No.
You want us to raise our hands? Mike, do you want us to raise our hands?
Yeah, that'll work.
See who we've got,
I'll unmute you if you raise your hand.
Sounds good. Well, I might as well begin then, since I already broke the silence to ask the question. Hi, Paul. John Mullen here. I've really enjoyed learning some hand tool techniques from Paul over the past several months of getting to know him. And from this SIG, I can also wait and... Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Perfect. Well then, hello, Paul. This is John Mullen. You've been a mentor to me over the past 6 months or so in hand tools, and I really appreciate that. And we've talked previously about starting up an SIG like this. So when I saw that it was on the roster of meetings for today, I was very interested. And as we've talked a little bit in the past regarding this group, I think something that I'd like to get out of it is just knowing who to talk to if I have a specific question for hand tool technique. Because books are great, and the SDFWA has an excellent library, including hand tool technique or use technique books. But it's really not as good as knowing like who to contact and reach out to. So if you want to set up a time to come into the shop and like, hey, can you teach me how to use a hand plane, which is something that you've taken a lot of time generously to teach me. And the second thing that we've talked about is knowing who's responsible for maintaining and then cataloging the tools to make sure that they're all in good working order and that they're high quality when someone comes in to use them. So I think those two things are what I'm really looking for here.
Great, thank you. And thank you for all your kind words, John.
Mike, may I?
Oh, please go ahead.
So I think that what really turned my head was the other day, Paul, when you were talking to the shop supervisors at the meeting and essentially making a testimonial to the importance of hand tools. You know, I come at it from the other end of the spectrum. And when I heard you say specifically that there were many instances where the best thing to do to handle a situation was, oh, in this case, just a little bit of a hand plane would do all you need, or right here, the spoke shave is just the perfect tool to do. There are those situations where hand tools are just uniquely beneficial. And that's just a side of hand tools, which I couldn't personally begin to appreciate at this point, but I would love to learn more about. So as this group meets, if that was one of the things I got out of it, I think that would be a real gift. I would love to know the forte of what each of these can do that you can't do with a power tool or a digital tool. And it just makes me that much more capable a woodworker if I have that insight.
All right, can I make a comment?
Please.
Yeah, yes, it's interesting that you say that, because almost every hand tool, almost every machine tool that we use these days is doing the same thing that a hand tool is capable of. You know, we have jointers, hand planes will do that. You have, spoke shaves will do the job of a router in many cases. One of these devices will actually route a groove for you, or if your machined grooved is 1/32 of an inch too shallow, something like that will get you out of trouble in a few minutes, and you don't have to reset the machine and worry about rerunning that thing through a very high speed machine. Okay, I'm done.
Patty, go ahead.
Hi, this is Patty.
Hey, Patty.
Hi. Yeah, I've recently really come to appreciate the hand tools. I've been working on a piece of wood for a desk, and the grain is extremely difficult to work with, and running it through a power planer created all sorts of tear out, no matter what tricks I tried to defeat the tear out. And I came to really love the scrapers. And not just, I have a Lee Nielsen scraper plane, but I've now in possession of at least 5 different card scrapers. And I've tried several techniques for creating the burr, which burr lasts longer, which metal card is best for different situations. And so these hand tools, I've really come to appreciate that they can help you overcome some of the limitations of the power tools and do things that the power tools can't. And I'm just still learning a lot about the hand tools, but it really opened up my eyes into the potential of what they could provide to enhance your woodworking.
All right, you've been reading my mail.
Can I chime in here?
Sure.
Please.
This is Doug. I think we need to answer John's questions first. He had 2 questions. First, who could he go to get help with hand tools? There are a lot of us within the shop that will be glad to help you, guide you through whatever hand tool use you might have. Paul or I, either one, can come in and show you how to use a particular hand tool at any time that you would like. Just, email us ahead of time and we could come in and help you. When Dave Wiseman is in town, he is an excellent source for use of hand tool instruction also. And there's a lot of us in the shop that use a lot of hand tools. Just ask around and we'll be glad to help set you up. The other question he had was inventory. So we actually have somebody designated to inventory and maintain the sharpness of all of the tools, if that will help you at all. Paul, to your point about what we would like to see, I think this is going to gain a lot of interest as we go along. I think maybe an interesting approach to this would be to pick 2 hand tools a session and have you demonstrate all of the capabilities of that hand tool as we go through the session. For example, you just picked up the router plane. Demonstrate how to adjust the router plane, how to get the right cut on it, how to adjust the depth, and even if we have a stop to make a offset groove from the edge of the board, how we can do such. That may be a good approach to it.
Yes, Doug, I agree with you entirely. And in fact, today I'm going to be going over card scrapers.
Yeah, I can reinforce what Doug is saying, because I grew up with power tools, right? So that's all I knew, sledgehammer and chainsaw. But I thought, well, hand tools, those are for old-time woodworking, right? Well, let me tell you, I've been taking a class with Mr. Russ Philbeck, on chair making, and he's introduced me to a world of hand tools that are just amazing. If you keep them sharp, if you adjust them right, if you use them right, as Doug just pointed out, you can actually make a beautiful chair with little to no standing at all. You get such a beautiful finish with hand tools. And to emphasize what you were saying, the neighbors don't seem to mind when you're working at 11 o'clock at night when you're using a spoke shaver, a hand scraper, or a router plane, but they sure do mind the router. That's all. I just wanted to, I think that would be an excellent approach, as I've learned every tool has so many nuances on how to use it to get premium results. And I think, as Patty was saying, you can actually get better results with a hand tool than you can with a power tool if you know how to use it. I'm done.
Anyone else want to chime in there?
Yeah, this is Walt Groves. One thing that always concerns me is sharpening. I've got scary sharp, I've got stones, I've got grinders, all. I'd like to get it down to a system where I just went through it, because every time I think about it now, I think, oh my God, I got to get this stuff all out. And what I'd like to do is condense it all down to, this is my method of sharpening.
You know what? I have a method, and I'll talk about it a little more when we get to the card scraper, because, but in essence, what I have found works really well for me, and I like you, I have worked with water stones, oil stones, all kinds of different stones, and I have actually, through just stuff that was donated to the shop here, come up with a basic sharpening system of, if you use a diamond plate, with diamond plates stay really nice and flat, which is really good for plane blades and chisel blades. If there are coarser, but in terms of sharpening rather than shaping, so a 600 grit, I'm still pointing, a 600 grit, and then on the back side I have a 1200 grit, and then this baby is equivalent to about a 6,000 water stone. It's a ceramic stone. You have to use it a great deal to make it go out of flat, which is a tremendous advantage. And I like to carve as well. So, something like this is great, because if you try to sharpen a carving tool on a water stone, you're up the creek. But there are many, many different sharpening methods.
This is Dallas. So I'm just going to step in and just make a comment. I know you can't see me, but I'm here in the shop with Paul. We're keeping our distance. Paul and I and a few others are working through a standardized system that we're going to recommend be used at the shop, and we'll make sure we have all the equipment for it, and that's what we'll gear our teaching around, and we'll make sure we support the shop, make sure all our shift supervisors who can and will know that to be the process. We'll have one and possibly two systems available, but we're working through that. If anybody's willing to and would like to step up and help us with that, we'd love to have you. There's so many different ways you can sharpen, and there's so many different tools you can use. You can go crazy just trying to figure out a path, and you keep switching back and forth. We're going to pick one or two and stick with those and support them, so that we have that available for everybody and have something that's a very practical system for our shop members.
Can I chime in there to ask, how can we help? Are you talking just people to research different methods and try stuff and then make recommendations, or no? What's the method there of choosing best method?
Paul's our lead. You know, I think you asked the question, who's responsible for inventorying and sharpening all the tools, making sure they're done? That's Paul. And he's got a person or two who's been working with him, and we're looking for more to step in with that. But Paul's our lead, and Paul will be the one who's making the final decision on which system we ultimately use and then helping us implement it. So, yeah, if you're willing to help with that, you got your guy, Paul.
All right, yeah.
One or two people to kind of get into that debate with us and figure out what's practical. You know, some things work well in a home shop, but we have to have something that's durable and will survive in the community shop, and yet will do the job for everybody. So that's the kind of the trade-off.
Yeah, and I know, John, you have offered to help, and I haven't as yet, you know, in the past, I haven't as yet taken you up on it, but we will be. But I'm not married to my system. I really would like input from everybody because as I say, I've only been doing this a few years, and I know there's people out there who've been doing it a lot longer than I have. Anyone else?
Hey, Paul, this is Dave Weissman from Wisconsin.
Hi, David. I got your email. I'm composing an epistle.
That's fine. I just wanted to say thank you for doing this. I love Doug's idea of a couple of tool demonstrations. I think it might be helpful to survey the group, perhaps offline, of sort of their top areas of interest. And then that would give you some focus on this. I personally am always looking for help with spoke shaves and, as you know, sharpening curved blades. So, but I'm sure others have lots of other issues they'd like to learn about. So thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, David, for all your work over when you were here in San Diego. Yeah, I learned a lot from you. Is that it? Anyone else? I know there's more out there. Okay, let's go to demonstrating the card scraper. Yeah. Okay, so are we set up?
We may have just lost
Yeah,
video.
we lost your video.
We lost video.
All right, I'll have a sip of coffee and wait.
Ah, good job.
Okay. First of all, what was I going to say? Michael, would you mind throwing up those few photographs that they're a bit out of sequence now, but and then end up with the one that shapes the card. Be ready with the one that shows the shape of the card scraper.
Paul, which one do you want first?
Let's start with the shaker ones.
Okay.
I just wanted to show you hand tool work from back in the day. I went a few years ago. I went to visit my wife's family in Massachusetts, and went to the Hancock Village Shaker settlement, and the whole place is just built out with this incredible woodwork. You know, they have a round barn that's all joinery. It's incredible. But I took a few pictures, and I just wanted to show you a couple.
Hopefully you can see it's the desk with the two chairs.
I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I cannot see it. I still just see the folder showing the icons of the pictures, but not the full sized.
Okay,
Yeah,
let me see if we can fix. Thank you. Let me see if we can.
All we're seeing is the thumbnail, Michael.
Okay, let me see if I can make it bigger.
If you choose screen share again, you'll get to choose from among various desktop or items. So you should be able to find the picture and choose that.
Yeah, I did. It's full screen on it. It's full size on my screen, not on yours.
Well, we'll all come over to your house. That should solve the problem.
That works for me.
Yeah, we can solve that problem, but not have you guys sitting there watching.
You guys see it now?
Back to the just
No.
the thumbnail.
No, same thing.
How about now?
Nope. Same problem.
Oh, okay. We'll try this one more time, and then we'll move on to Paul. I don't know why it's not.
Yeah. Do you by chance have two desktops or two monitors there?
There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't. Oh, there we go. That's a. The Shakers were very much into handwork, although they were also fairly innovative. in this particular village, the few power tools they had were run by water coming down about 1.5 miles from a pond further up the hill. But all of this work, by its sheer age alone, tells you that there was no sanding. 3M weren't making sandpaper at that time. And that you can see this wood has stood the test of time. It just remains absolutely beautiful. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I love the simplicity of shape of furniture. So let's show a couple more.
Okay.
Okay, I thought you guys would enjoy that. Fine woodworking at its best. It's stood the test of time, though.
You would not want any splinters there.
Sorry?
No splinters in that one.
And there's room. You can see the wonderful little energy-saving stoves they use, and the rails where they hung up their chairs so that they could make the maximum use of the space that they had. And these beautiful, tall pieces of sort of highboys. I was in heaven when I was going around this building. Let's move on.
Okay. Sorry to go back. There's your Ming Dynasty.
Oh, yes. So, as you know, hand tools have been around for a while. This guy is from the Ming Dynasty, which means that at the latest he was made in the 1600s. And he's just absolutely exquisite. And he's not on exhibit, but he's in the archives of the Chinese Historical Museum downtown. And the reason I have photos of it is because I went down there to take a bunch of photographs, and one of these days I'm going to try to carve a copy of it.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and that is what I'm doing, or what I've been doing while we've been sequestered, as it were. Not a very big picture, but it's a fun little piece, and
That's absolutely beautiful.
Sorry?
That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And I'm making a second one that's got a bit more of a cloud lift in it. But oh, there you go. It's a little bigger now. But fun little challenge. But the reason I put it in is because a lot of hand tool work in that. At home I have a bandsaw, a drill press, and a router table, and that's pretty much the static machinery I have. So you know, all of these boxes were individually scraped. No worries. Anyway, enough of my stuff. Let's move on.
Okay. And we lost your video again. Dallas, if you could work on that.
All right, got the video back. Okay, so the card scraper. I am no expert. I've been struggling for years trying to get these things to work, and it's only in the last few months that I've found a way to work it. And it's thanks to a gentleman that actually gave a class here about a year and a half ago, something like that. Very good teacher, very good writer, and writes very knowledgeably about hand tools. And he has like a 3-page section in this book and this other book called The Hand Plane. And that explains how to do this. It's a really good explanation. It's simple, demystifies things, and it's in our library. So I have copies of them at home and use them all the time. So anyway, you get a brand new card scraper from the factory, and it's not ready to use. What we want to do is we want to shape this edge. The edges are what performs the job for the card scraper. So we're going to shape the edge, and then we're going to put a blade on it. And if Michael, you would throw up.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Give me just a split second.
You got it. Take your time. I'll keep talking until you're ready. So the very first thing that we're going to do to this is we're going to, just like we joint a piece of wood, we're going to joint. Can you guys still hear me?
Can you guys, yeah, we can hear you, Paul. Can you guys see the picture now?
We see a group of pictures.
Just thumbnails, Mike.
Don't worry about it. I can always do something on the board if need be.
Okay, you may need to do, this is not working as.
That's all right. We're all fine by the seat of our pants.
We are.
Oh, there we go. Wonderful. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to joint the front edge, or not the front edge, the edge of the card. And what we want to do is, you'll see on the left-hand side of the picture, you'll see just a rough sketch of what the shape should be like. We should have an absolutely perfect 90-degree on those edges there. And obviously the edge needs to be flat there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just very slightly bend over the edge of the card. And only slightly, because we want strength. That's why I've written strong above it. If we bend it over too far, which was my greatest mistake, you create something that's weak. It's like a filing almost, that's just sticking out. It breaks easily and then becomes useless. So what you want is a very, very small edge on that in order to get fine shavings. You can cut them what's the word? Hone them, as it were, to get a deeper cut. But I found that just using a very fine cut works really well. Better to do 100 fine cuts than 75 heavier cuts and end up with a smooth surface. So I'm going to demonstrate how I joint it. I've over the years of using hand tools, you develop muscle memory. So a lot of my sharpening I can do without having to use jigs and tools. There are some things like the basic shaping that I do use jigs for. But if you're not comfortable with creating a 90-degree, you can make something out of a little block of wood and set it like that, and then use it to guide what you're working on. But it's pretty simple. I rarely use that. What I do, I put it in the vise. And I want the blade to be fairly low down there. I'll move this out of the way. I want the blade to be fairly low down there so that it doesn't wobble around. I'm going to take like a number, I'm not sure what number this is, but an 8 or a 6 bastard file. And we lay it on here at 90 degrees. So what I'm going to do is file this into a straight edge like that. I'll show you the action first. But basically, it behooves you to, if you can keep that 90 degree, you can see the 90 degree there. If you can keep that 90 degree, if you go along like this, it gives you a nice straight edge. So I'm just going to shut up and do it. I can already see a little shine coming up. Not polished, but it's a bit cleaner. Want a nice even stroke and keep that 90 degree. That's really critical. So, if you have to make one of these, so be it. It doesn't take 10 minutes with that. So. All right, so I think I've got that nice and straight. It's got an edge on it, but it's not a very nice feeling edge. I'm just going to check it against the piece of wood. Nice and straight. So now, the next thing I'm going to do is get rid of that burr there. And actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to continue to joint this. And I'm going to do that by jointing it first with the 600 grip. And there we go. I could see the machined edge on that, whereas this has been filed. So again, it's critical to keep it at 90 degrees. So again, this can be helpful. I have to get it at the right angle for my body, but I just work it back and forth like this. Now, if we were working it on a water stone, it would cause grooves. So what we would do, if that's all you've got, that's fine. Keep moving the angle. And when you're doing it like that, you're cutting across the entire piece. But what's critical is that 90-degree edge. Okay, always have rags around. Okay, that's feeling a little better, a little smoother. So I'm going to take off those filings. The other wonderful thing about a diamond plate, it leaves very little water, and you get to the ceramic plates and then you cut. So I can already see, I don't know if I can flash it for the camera, but I can already see, yeah, there you go, a nice white line there, which indicates I've got a nice straight line there. So next I'm gonna, the 1200 will give it a little bit of a polish. And it's also important to polish the edge. And what's really important is to make sure that you get even pressure on the edge there. It's very easy to do the ends, and you can feel that you've taken the burr off. I'm not going to polish this much, but again, you can take this polishing process as far as you want. The finer your polish is, the finer your blade is. And as you know, all blades are serrated, basically. So it's just smaller serrations. But again, this is all about that 90 degrees. So we want to keep this flat on here, and we want to keep it flat on there, and then that at 90 degrees there. So I'm on the 1200. I've taken off that burr there. I haven't really polished it, but I've got something. It's only the edge that matters. No need to polish in here, just like a plain blade. It's only the part that does the work that really matters. So, you know, you can just, because it's quite hard work. You can just polish like that. Feel free to chime in with questions. All right. So I've gone to my 1200. Got a little polish on there. So now I'm going to go to the ceramic stuff. I would usually take, with a brand new one, take a little longer than this and a little more care, but I don't want to have you guys sit and, how's this, getting up and going and making a fresh pot of coffee or whatever. All right. You could do this in a very methodical order, but if I feel that I'm not getting it right, I'll go back to the previous piece there, the previous grit. I'm sure one could create something that gives you an even pressure when you're doing something like this, but again, it's nice to have the interaction of your fingers with the tool. Okay, so now I've got something that, although it's not entirely polished on that edge, I can work with it. So now, if I show that to the camera, I don't know if you can see how good the definition is, but that now has a really nice polished edge. This was the part that was missed out when I took the 100 class and was taught how to do this. They didn't explain that if you want good results, you've got a little more work into it. Okay, so now I've got something that has no burrs here, lovely polished edge there, and presumably a nice clean edge. This by itself is a scraper. Garrett Hack uses just like this scrape between coats of shellac and so on. It involves a different angle, but it's really nice for the fine polishing script. Or just going over some shellac and just taking off the high points without sanding, because you get more clarity if you use blades rather than little chunks of abrasive. Okay, so now the other thing I was taught in 100 was to put it back in the vise and work it now. And that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is just create a very, very slight edge. And the way, I don't think Garrett puts it this way, but the way I read it a while ago is that you don't want to use much more pressure than you would use to push it. It's really minimal. So hold it in your hand. Go. I've got oil. So you want a little light oil on the path. But because you've got steel on steel, you don't want to heat it up at all. And you also, this is called a burnish. They come in multiple different shapes. Actually, you can get ovals, you can get rounds, you can get flats. For flat blades, it works out really well to use a flat blade. I missed out a step here. Something that I really need to do is, although I can't feel a burr there, there is a little bit of an edge. So, how about if I come in? Will that work? So what you do is you place, before you start actually burnishing it down, you place the whole card on something supported, like the bench. And you do what I know as scraping the crumbs off the table. The action is away from the edge and off the edge of the blade. Keep it flat. You don't want to tilt it. You're not trying to create a curve. Keep it nice and flat. And that now I can go along there and feel really smooth. Okay, so now I'm ready to actually sharpen. And this is really counterintuitive. But what you do, first of all, just go, set it at 90 degrees. Go along a couple of times like that, just to polish that edge. And then you can do this two ways. You can, basically what we're going to do is put it at a very slight angle and run the burnisher along. And then we can either do the other side by running the burnisher over there. It might be a slightly different angle, but if your muscle memory works good for you like that, then just turn the card, do it like that. But anyway, we've done a couple of strokes along here. So now we want to do 3 or 4 strokes gently at a very slight angle. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I find if I don't do a little backstroke like that, that front edge tends to not take a burnish. So then I'm going to turn it around, do that slight angle on the other side. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing at a slightly more angle. And this is a matter of your personal choice. What it governs is how far over the blades can you go when you scrape. So I can already feel a nice burr on 2, 3, 4. And again, I'll work it until I feel something. But what I don't want is a great big burr. Now, when we do this, I tend to just do 2 opposite sides, because when I use it, I work it. Just because you don't see a handle and a sharp chisel here, it doesn't mean this isn't a blade. You can cut yourself really nicely with this. So, if I've got this right, I should be pretty close to being able to use that cut. Because of the limitations of our benches, I'm using, and I'm sure you guys have limitations with your benches as well. So I just Use all sorts of different things to hold things down. Even planing a long piece, I can hold the back end down. It's moving. Okay, so that one is not so sharp. There. Now this part I haven't done terribly well. Now, if you're getting just sawdust like that, there are two reasons for that. One is the blade is not sharp enough, and the other is that you're using the wrong angle. And every now and again, when I get it to really smooth, I find that it's not so easy to take the shape. But the key to this, is you start the blade up at 90 degrees perpendicular to the wood, and you just start moving it along and gently tipping it over. When you feel the grip, right, as soon as it grips the wood, use that angle.
Paul, you can repeat the last part because the computer froze. At least here it did.
Oh, it did. So how long ago was that?
When you held it at 90 degrees to the board, and then I couldn't hear you anymore.
Right. Okay, so we'll go back and do that again. So you hold it at 90 degrees to the board, and you just tip it over till you feel. I have not sharpened this very well. Until you feel the blade catching. So start sliding it along. It's on a nice polished surface. When you feel the blade catching, and then just slide it along, tip it over. When you feel the blade catching, use that. And that's where you will get shavings, little fluffy things, rather than just sawdust. Don't have any of my nicely sharpened ones with me, but I sharpen this one. The nice thing about a scraper is you can use it for heavy work, you can use it for cross grain, and you can use it for really fine work. So once you've got things flat, what I use it for a lot is machine marks. I don't know about you, but my major use of the shop is to come in here and to either joint or plane something that's larger than what I can do, larger than I'm willing to do. But very often I'll take those things home, and they've got machine marks in it. The planers and the jointers do leave machine marks on it. And I find that very difficult to sand out. I don't like sanding it. It's expensive, it's noisy, it's dusty, and I just don't like it. And I'm not satisfied that the result is as good, right? So machine marks like this piece, for example, there is still a little snipe on this, but this was entirely hand planed, hand scraped. I did finish it up lightly with 220 just to kind of make it look even, but a very light sanding. So this was done. This is Sapelli. It's a wood with interlocking grain. It's an absolute nightmare to plane because when you plane it, you're doing beautifully. You get a lovely smooth surface on one stripe, and then you go to the one next to it, and it just tears out like crazy. And that little Lee Nielsen, if you use that at a very, is it oblique or acute angle? Very slight angle, so you're just taking off little shavings. It works really well with this. And then something like that.
Can I ask you a question at this point?
Sorry?
Can I ask another question?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
I ask you this one?
Cool.
I pretend to go off on tangents.
Yeah. I noticed that the point you reached of going through the process of sharpening, then going to use the card scraper and finding out, oh, this isn't as sharp as I thought. I get there every time I try to sharpen my card scraper. I'll go through the process pretty much as you showed, and then get to the end like, ah, shoot, what's going on? How do you diagnose that? Where do you restart the process to?
Good question. It's sort of trial and error. I'm finding this method I just showed you kind of works well, but I would try different angles of your burnisher. If you use a nice even pressure on it, that really helps. But like you, I'm still in the exploring mode. I found this system works more often than more consistently than any other I've used so far. But the first thing I'll do if I think it's not sharp enough or if it's not getting me anything, so I'll just try burnishing it again, and I can always go back with the burnisher and redo the edges and then resharpen it, rejoint it on something like this. If you find the perfect method, you can be hit. But you get a few different scrapers. The other nice thing about scrapers is they're really good for. I'm not getting good results. Yeah, I completely lost what I was going to say.
The other good use of scrapers.
Huh?
You said the other good use of scrapers.
Other good use for scrapers. Well, that one's just lost. I tell you what, though, my bench is the same bench as this. I've heavily modified it, but it looks a wreck compared to these benches. It's just got stuff all over it. Every now and again, I'll use a flat scraper to pick up all that stuff. Lots of sharpening. But getting these things sharp is fun. But I think if you try that Garrett hack method, you may find that you have more success than you've had in the past. The greatest watershed for me was not putting this in place, just working it like this. Now I can always add you can add a little more oomph into it, but you're not going to make it just in your hands. You're not going to make it huge.
Yeah, I often find that I might be over burnishing and then forming too big a burr. That might be part of the issue. So hand holding could well improve that. Thanks.
Yeah, another technique to use is use your thumbs to create a little tension in the edge of the blade. It helps to focus the energy and gives you that shading. You see that lovely shading there? And of course, when your shavings are thin enough, don't you? When you just go like that and they just stay up in the air.
Paul, do you ever?
Yeah, that one makes some nice shavings, but that little bit of tension really helps. But the other thing you have to watch out for is heat. This is a friction, there's some friction involved here. The sharper your blade is, the less friction there is. And focusing that energy really gives you those shavings nicely. That's what I've got just now. See, that's giving me some nice thin shavings. You can't get that thin with clay. The Lee-Nielsen can get darn close, but not that thin. The other way to use these is if you're looking at your surface, you've got a nice polish and there's a couple of minor blemishes and you want to clean things up, bring it towards you like that with just a light, and you'll pick up some high points. And also, I would point out that even whether you're working with long grain or end grain or anything in between. Sorry, mine's gone broke. I've been on stage for too long. But yes, no, I can't remember it. But anyway, you'll find that the card scraper gives a polish that the sanding just doesn't do. And it gives you a nice even cut, whereas sandpaper is basically a bunch of pieces of brick just grinding on your wood. And one other tip before we go to sort of round table again and any other questions is if you're having problems, especially with little ripples in the wood, if you're having problems, try going like this. Try going diagonal to the grain as you would with a plane, and you will find that you can sometimes get much better results, especially working something like this really helps. You know, you just take, just as you do with the 62 here, or the 60. See, when I'm working with cross grain, I work it like that. So my plane is barely even touch and go. I'm going to step back down so I feel that surface. That doesn't even need scraping. No. Yeah. But you always have one or two little ridges, so a scrape or whatever is good. Okay, I don't think I've given you as comprehensive a set of instruction as I wanted to, but I think I should shut up and let you guys have the stage. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, and also to say if any of you guys have special skills that you'd like to come and demonstrate, it'd be very great. There are so many different hand tools for different purposes. And we have a lot of them a lot of the hand tools you see around you are actually in the shop here. Some of them are mine. I just want to finish up by my $3 story. I'm down at the swap meet a year or so ago, and I found this really rusty old Diston saw. I couldn't even see who the brand name was when I got it. It's from the 1950s. It has that critical aspect for a large hand saw, which is to have the tapered blade, so that as you cut through it, the blade doesn't bind. But then I took it home. I have all the tools to sharpen this, but I'm sitting there with an article from Fine Woodworking. I got this sharp enough that, as I mentioned, I use just a bandsaw at home. I don't have a table saw or anything like that. So very often, if I've got a 10-foot piece and I want to cut 4 feet off it, I'll just take this and cut it off, and then I can put it on the bandsaw to fine tune it. But it's surprising how a sharp saw can save you a lot of labor. I mean, I always thought sawing was sweaty, hard, physical work, but actually you can just pretty much work. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm off screen. So if there's anyone out there who's experienced with saw sharpening, I'd love that would be my request. Let's turn it over to you guys for comments, questions, and anything else.
Paul, really nice job. I really appreciate your demo on the card scrapers, and it was nice to see that you as an expert at times have difficulties, because I've sure gone through a lot of iterations where I've either broken the burr off or not created even dust. And then when you do find that sweet spot, it's just so nice. So thanks for the demo. I really loved it. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. And if any of you guys have tips, please feel free to mail them in or whatever, and we'll send them out.
Great, thanks.
Sounds like somebody's practicing their scraping.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
I'm doing it here.
Yes.
And I'm practicing the scraping.
I can hear you.
I have a Balco scraper. Can you talk all about scraper and manufacturers at all?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You broke up rather badly.
He's asking about brands and types of scrapers.
Oh, brands.
Brands.
Good question. Good question. There is a wild variety, and I seem to have most of the soft ones. I really like this woodsmith. This belongs to the shop, and along with quite a few others. The woodsmith is nice. Traditionally, a card scraper was made from an old saw. I find thick ones work a little easier for heavier work. Thin ones are a little easier for fine work. But in terms of brand names, I bought the brand name I got was Shopfox, and I would upgrade if I knew better. I think the Woodsmith ones are really nicely made. I think it's all about the quality of the steel. But if you find a brand that you really like, let me know.
Say, Paul, this is Dana here. Really good presentation. I'd like to make a couple comments. One is for one use I use for a card scraper, which you didn't mention here. I find that if I'm using a film coating, whether it's a clear coat or paint, it works great for taking out dust nubs. Instead of using sandpaper, if you take a card scraper and scrape it, it knocks them off in a heck of a lot less time, and it works real well. And a second, if you're going to use card scrapers, get several of them, because you're going to need to be sharpening them, and you're not going to want to stop when you're going and resharpen. So thank you.
I would echo that 100%. I'll sharpen 3 card scrapers up at once, and about 45 minutes work will get all of them.
Question here from John. Does anyone have any experience in sharpening curved edge scrapers?
Curved edge scrapers. I've sharpened mine at home, and using a round burnisher is the big thing. And you could use, what I have at home is ceramic slipstones for getting those curves, for putting a polish on those curves. It's the same material as this made that spider curve. And they're really nice I got them for carving, but they're really good. You would use a round file in order to joint it, as it were, because you're not looking for that flat edge. So you start with a round file and then work up to a burnisher through something like a slipstone. And by the way, you don't have to have a burnisher. A really good quality chrome screwdriver. But that's the best I've got to offer in terms of that. You know, if you use a fine file, if you've got diamond files, round diamond files, they can work well. It's be creative, use what you have, but basically you just want to somehow get that to a polish. You could even use sandpaper and dowels. Just wrap a piece of sandpaper around a dowel and just start with, I don't know, maybe 320 and something like that. And you know, and for the jointing, you could do the same thing, scary sharp. Just sandpaper on a piece of glass. But if you can afford the diamonds, Rockler sells this for about $80, I think, and I've had it for years. Did that even close to answer your question?
Yes, thank you. It seems like there's some experimentation required.
Yes, the important thing is to create that perpendicular edge there. Anyone else?
Paul, this is Gary. I certainly echo everybody else's comments. You did a tremendous job. That was a great demonstration.
Oh, I've enjoyed working with you guys.
And I always learn something, and you and I have talked about card scrapers in our intro class, and how to, both of us fretting over the fact they're so hard to sharpen. So I'm pleased that you've developed so much proficiency. The one thing I will throw out, just for the sake of discussion, is in my quest to try to figure out how to do this, I ran into somebody, and I'm trying to remember who it was. It was Russ or Bob Stevenson or somebody that clearly had a lot of expertise. And I was sharing with them how frustrated I was that I couldn't get a good burr. And the thing they told me is that the trick is to only run the burnisher down the edge one time, and that you really had to lean into it. So I found it very interesting that you are teaching just the opposite, and Garrett Hack obviously is teaching just the opposite. But I thought I'd bring that up. I think you and I had this discussion once, but I'd be interested in your comments on the difference between the two approaches.
My comment is, I'm going to try it. I've always, I found this lightweight method, but I like the one shot. I really like that idea, but I'll give it a go. I'll give you guys some feedback in the next meeting.
Well, I gave it a go and it didn't work very well, but I think it was maybe because I'm just not strong enough to do it. So I'm anxious to go out and try your method.
You know, when I took classes up there from Rogowski up in Portland, he said the one pass is the right way to do it. And his logic was that every pass you can't have exactly the same angle, and so you're likely to flex that burr and weaken it.
Yeah.
So it's like moving metal back and forth, how you flex it and it breaks it off. So he advocated at that time one pass.
Yeah, I'll give that a shot. Because like I say, I've only just discovered this way of working, so I'm always open to anything that works.
It might have been Rogowski that is the one that I was thinking of, because I think he and I had that discussion too. Anyway, while I've got you, Dallas, just very quickly, if you would make sure you get a photo of Paul doing that so that I can use that for the next update. And also one of the 3D printer printing those face shields, and congratulations again on that, Paul. That's a very nice thing to do, and we're all very proud and impressed with what you're doing with that. The other comment I would make, as long as I've got the microphone, is to all of you is I've noticed some comments going back and forth on chat about surveying what else would be of interest to you on the SIG meeting. Let me just emphasize how important it is that all of you send an email to Dallas with some feedback on what you saw this morning, both pro and con, but also include any other thoughts you have on what you would like to see for future SIGs, and that'll save him having to send out a survey. But we are a little flummoxed because I gave the SIG on making the wood putters, and we had like 50 people show up. And we haven't had anywhere near that number of people sign up since. So I feel like I've run a bunch of people off. But what we asked for that day was the same thing as some feedback, and I had a total of 2 responses. So that's not helpful, because obviously we don't know what we did wrong, or we don't know where we're missing the boat. So please take a few moments when we're done. Send Dallas an email and copy Travis and I if you would. But Dallas is really kind of the focal point on this, and the guy that's going to make the decision on who's going to go next. And again, has already been said, if there's something that you think you could demonstrate, we'd love to hear that too. So include that in your feedback. Paul, thanks again.
Yes, thanks, Paul.
Oh, thank you, Gary. I think it was your star power that got so many people in the last time.
Could you please post email addresses of people to reach out to in the chat, Gary? I think you mentioned Dallas and Paul.
Oh, could we share the email between us? Yeah.
I'm going to.
No, I don't know how to do it, but we'll figure it out.
Mike, can you put that in the chat box?
I'm going to send an email out today, and I'll make sure that Dallas, all of the appropriate San Diego Fine Woodworkers emails are there in an email you'll get today from me.
Okay, great.
Great.
All right.
Okay, guys. Paul, once again, thank you.
Fantastic, Paul.
Thank you all for checking in and for staying with us.
And for everybody who attended today, thank you. This is the first of a series of events for the Hand Tools SIG. And I know Paul's looking for other subjects. Be sure to suggest to him what subjects you want to talk about. I heard the subject of sharpening come up a couple of times. I'm sure there's many other subjects that everybody have in common. Just looking around the room here and seeing all the hand tools that Paul has, I can see probably 50 or 60 different sessions here of different subjects we could talk about. So with that, thank you for attending today, and we'll conclude today's SIG.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you for checking in.
Thanks, Paul. Take care.
Excellent job, Paul. I was very proud of you.
Yes, thanks again, Paul. Talk to you soon.
Well done.
Where's